Welcome to I Love Content. I'm your host, Laura Bergells, and with me are Scott Smith and Elizabeth Godey, and our special guest today is Julie Zickefoose. She is coming to us from an 80-acre wildlife sanctuary in Appalachian, Ohio, and other than writing and illustrating books, Julie's also a contributing editor to Bird Watchers Digest, and she speaks, she leads trips and history excursions, and she sings in a band, and she even has a new book coming out in 2019. So in other words, she is a creative force, and we are lucky to have her pop by to talk about creativity for our Lunch and Learn today. So welcome, Julie. And I'm going to kick things off by asking you, Julie, where does all this creative force and creativity come from?
Oh boy, you know, I've been pondering this question. I told you I was an over preparer, but it's true. I kind of in answering that question, I think I need to get a little bit Jungian on you. And this is not my field, psychology, but I'm very interested in it. And Tom Laughlin, who is a screenwriter and a writer and also a Jungian psychologist, says that there is this thing called the self. And in the self is the ego. And hammering away at the outside of the self and getting into the self is the divine. And creativity, I believe, dwells in the divine. It's something that comes from without. It's something that hits you, or perhaps it can be self-generated, but it's always banging away on our door. And what stands between creativity and the self is the ego. The ego is our everyday self that says, oh, I really ought to wipe these counters, and well, you know, gee, I've got a lot of laundry to do, and oh, you know, my husband won't like it if I write all day, and you know, so the ego is the thing that's always nattering away and wrecking the creative force. So creativity comes from clearing away the resistance that keeps us from doing what we were meant to do, I think. And there are a number of examples of that. I had this really interesting revelation. I read the Writer's Almanac, which is this lovely thing that comes in the mail. It's from Garrison Keillor, and it's got a poem every time. And it was talking about Emily Dickinson. And Emily Dickinson is famous for just, I mean, her poems just knock me out. They're just incredible.
Yeah.
Usually centering around the natural world. Always incredibly insightful and searing, you know, just beautiful work. And Emily Dickinson sort of was like in high society and just, you know, cavorting around with her friends and everything in the Belle of Amherst. And then she just kind of disappeared at around 35. And she was writing a lot of poetry. And over the years, people have been speculating about what happened to Emily Dickinson. What was wrong with Emily Dickinson? Why was she always alone? Why was she a recluse, right? And so the speculations have been, oh, well, maybe she was an epileptic. The meter of her poems sound like they were written by an epileptic. Maybe she had a broken heart. Maybe some guy broke her heart, and so she went into seclusion. Maybe there was nothing wrong with Emily Dickinson. Maybe Emily Dickinson wrote better when she was by herself. Like I do, like a lot of people do, like we don't allow ourselves to be. And so I've been really exploring solitude. I think creativity comes out of solitude. Creativity comes out of clearing away the crud that is in your head, that is in your way. And a lot of the crud that's in your head, that's in your way, is generated by people all around you talking a lot, or by the television set talking a lot, or by the radio bumming you out, or whatever it is. So I guess I'm speaking from a position of having been mired in all the stuff that keeps you from doing what you're supposed to be doing, and suddenly seeing the light. And I feel really good about that.
I love that because I love Emily Dickinson. And I did have a client, we were talking about Emily Dickinson, and she said, oh, isn't it so sad that she was a recluse? And I'm like, no. I really love her work. I really love that she did what she did in a way that she wanted to, that she wasn't after fame, that she was after the creativity. So how do you balance that with all the different distractions that we have today and all the push of, you know, be involved with social media and, you know, keep being out there in the world. How do you balance that? Because I really, really align with what you're saying.
Well, Emily Dickinson died at 55 with 1,800 poems in her desk. So clearly she found the self, herself, very good company. And that was what she chose to do. I think it frightens the world at large when an artist says, you know what, later, I've got stuff to do here. I think it bothers family and friends. I think they just kind of say they don't have a way, a lot of people, of understanding what creative isolation is all about. And I guess I talk to a lot of women who say, I want to do what you do. I want to write books. I just want to write books. I don't have time to write books, but I want to write books. And the thing is, I believe that you should make it having time is not the way to phrase it. Making time is the way to phrase it. Making time. I don't make time to write books. It's a whole different thing then, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, when I have my dearest friend is always saying, I just don't have time to get my house in order. You don't make time to get your house in order. And I correct her every time, and she loves me for that. And she corrects me when I'm on the ceiling. She pulls me off. So, yeah. You know, it's about being the captain of your own destiny and deciding what it is you're going to spend this wild and precious life doing. Mary Oliver is also considered a recluse. What a coincidence. Brilliant poet, brilliant natural history, you know, poet, incredible person. So what if she spends a lot of time alone? That's where those poems come from. So yeah. I guess I'm making a plea. I'm making a plea for some creative isolation. I don't think we grant ourselves that. And I just don't think we do. I think we think it's abnormal, you know, to want to just shut yourself away and in your tower and write. But once you do, and once you get into that, you know, it's a very powerful thing.
I really resonate with that because at a very early age, right when I graduated from with my master's degree, a professor psychologist gave me the gift of a psychological profile, and he said, Laura, you're an extreme extrovert. And I said, I think you might be mistaken about that, because while I really like people and I really enjoy being around people and I get a lot of energy from being around people, I really like my alone time. And I like being among people, but it's like, leave me alone, otherwise no work will get done whatsoever. And I get really agitated if I don't have my alone time. And I'm an extreme extrovert, apparently. So is there a balance that we need to have for creative isolation and our people time?
Well, you know, you're asking the wrong person. It's now been 8 days since I've started my car. So let me think about that. You know, it's so funny. I go to start my Subaru and it goes vroom, vroom, vroom. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? And it's like, it's 8 days. What am I supposed to do? So I admit that I am kind of on the other side of this right now because I'm finishing a book. So I'm on the way other end of the spectrum. But I also have a problem with people dividing the world into extroverts and introverts. I think that's a problem because I think you can be a real mix. And there's nobody who loves a party like you, right? And there's nobody who loves a party like me, but I like it when I want it. I don't want to party every night, you know? If I partied every night, I'd be miserable. So I think that every human being has doses of both. And I think that what we're guilty of mostly is ignoring the introvert in ourselves, the person who has to be alone with their thoughts and collecting themselves in order to produce something. So I guess I'm just making a plea for people to carve out the time to do what it is that sets them at peace and to grant themselves unstructured time. Unstructured time is the greatest gift any creative artist can have. And that's what we deny ourselves most frequently, I think.
Yeah, I see that as well. I see children with so much structured time, and I had so much unstructured time. Yeah. And I'm also hearing a lot about this whole introversion, extroversion thing where people will act like introversion is some sort of disease, or if it's
Right.
like this amazing social power. And I have to tell you, I'm kind of with you on the, I'm not really believing that there is such a spectrum. I believe that we all have, you know, different personalities, but I'm not really sure that there's, we should place so much credence on that scale.
Well, I think it's very contextual, and I'm always skeptical when anything is presented as a dichotomy,
Yeah,
like everything's going to fit neatly into two buckets or one
right.
bucket or the other. And the world is very nuanced and fluid and changing, and people are changing, and people are going to react to different circumstances a different way depending on what they had for breakfast, how much sleep they had, and whether or not they get annoyed by a person like they're speaking to right now. Not that I got annoyed by you.
Or,
Am I annoying?
or how far behind you are on your deadline. At
Right,
that
right.
point, you might say, I'm an extreme introvert whenever I'm behind on a deadline because I'm like, people get away from me. I got work.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
much somebody that's all over the board as far as introversion and extroversion. So yeah, I don't like dichotomies. I did like one that my friend came up with, that everything in the universe is either a shark's tooth or it isn't.
You know, we hit on something with deadlines, right? You just invoked the D word, Laura, and there was a corollary of this whole Jungian self with the ego and everything. And this guy, Tom Laughlin, he's a psychologist who works with terminal patients. And he says that at the moment someone is given a terminal diagnosis, i.e. they have a very limited time to live, their consciousness shifts from the ego to the self. They suddenly ask themselves, well, what is it I should have been doing all along? What is it I should be doing? They take up music. They go to their kids' baseball games. They visit their grandparents. They do things that had been shoved aside by all the ego stuff, which is, oh, I got to get this bill paid, and I got to get this report in, and all that stuff that seemed so important and was foremost in their life is suddenly shoved aside for the heart stuff, for the soul stuff. And that shift of consciousness that happens when you find out you have a very short time to live is, I would submit, the same thing that happens when you get a big fat deadline from your publisher. It forces a shift of consciousness in you that says, oh, I don't have much time left. Let's do what matters, which is your work, which has always been what mattered. But we need a deadline in order to make it matter to us. And so I like that parallel of and why is it called a deadline? Because you're dead if you don't get it done, right? Or that's after that your contract is dead and you don't get paid, right? So I like that. I like that simile or that metaphor of very little life to live, or deadline, very little time to fool around. And so you get to it.
Right.
And for my latest book, Saving Jemima, I set myself a deadline of a year. I experienced this incredible thing with this bird that I raised, this blue jay. And I started writing about her the day I got her. I just started writing because I knew this bird was big. And she wound up to have this incredible sort of picaresque adventure of a life, and all this crazy stuff happened, and I'm writing the whole time. So by the time I released that bird, I was well on my way. And I just kept writing and writing, and then I started painting. And the goal was a self-imposed deadline of, I'm going to get a manuscript in exactly a year from the last time I saw the bird. The last time I saw the bird was December 23rd, 2017. And I just handed in the last chapter yesterday. So I actually beat my own deadline. But it's been a holy thing for me to be able to put out an entire book, written and illustrated, with 20 paintings and all the photographs, 106 photographs. Get it out. Just do it.
Yeah.
So that's been my goal this whole year. And it's been amazing what you can put aside. You don't actually have to answer all 90 emails in your box that day. You can let some of them age until they ripen and then fall. Just, oh, look, it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, I'm getting
So
two things
there's
out of what you
that.
just said. It's like, first of all, there's a reason the word dead is in that word deadline, right? And I love that. I love that a lot.
I
The
love
other
that
is
too. Yeah.
about the having time versus making time. The same thing with answering the emails. I have a thing where I say, it's not that I don't have time. It's like, that's not a priority. And there's just like, okay, my washroom right now is a mess. And it's been a mess now for 3 days, but cleaning it up right now, it's not a priority.
Right. We're talking about creativity here.
Well,
Exactly.
I think that one of the things I have to remind myself is I have to read the person that is sending me the email that says urgent. And do they have a habit of putting lots of exclamation marks and saying it's urgent when they can't find the coffee filters or something like that? And just like, you have to take that with a grain of salt, because some people are going to find a way to get a hold of you if you don't answer the text or the email or something like that. And then there's the people that see you in the hallway to ask you if you got the voicemail about the email they sent you. And you have to like, you can only give that so much effort. It's just like, I used to be somebody that I have to answer this, this, and this right now. And then a fellow that I used to work with managed 200 people. And he said, I check my email at 6:30 and 6:30. And that's it.
There you go. There you go. Let me, that brings me to a point that is a new discovery of mine. Years and years and years ago, I said, there shall never be a TV in the bedroom. No, thank you. Not going to happen. And just recently, I realized that I'm using my phone as a TV. So it no longer gets to come into the bedroom either. And the amazing thing that has happened since I did that is I've started writing again. So before I go to sleep, I write. When I wake up, the first thing I write is what I dreamt. And creativity lives in the dreams. The divine comes to you through the dreams. So if you write down your dreams, you remember them better the next time. Today is would be my dog's 13th birthday, and he visited me in my dream last night. It was incredible.
Yeah.
I could smell him, I could hear him, he could talk. It was amazing. It was a visitation. Had I not been writing down my dreams, I might never have remembered that I dreamt that, but it's so precious to me. So write down your dreams. They mean something. Every single one of them has all these rich metaphors in them. You can get essays out of a dream. So write with a pen in your hand. Yeah, and the great thing about it is your penmanship improves.
That's brilliant, because I mean, I like the phrase "write down your dreams," because I know people say "live your dreams," but if you don't remember what your dreams are,
there you go. If you don't write them down, they never happened.
When you're working on a book and you're doing the photography and the illustrations, is there like one area that has more gravity than another? Do you feel like, okay, I need to paint today, or I need to write today, or do your muses ever fight for your time?
Oh, thank you for that question, Scott. That's a great one. Yeah, I have this thing. I have this cerebral cortex that has a right half and a left half, and ne'er the twain shall mix. And the thing that is my particular monkey is that I love to write. I could write hanging by one foot upside down. Writing is therapy. Writing is easy. Writing is fun for me. Painting, I absolutely love to paint, but only after I've started doing it. So I set up a tremendous amount of resistance for myself when I'm trying to get through that really thick membrane between the right brain and the left brain, the creative brain, the right brain, and the left brain, which is the writing half. So what happens to me is I have this tremendous grinding of gears. And since I'm a linear thinker, I get all my writing done, and then it's time to paint. And then I basically goof around for like weeks to months before I start painting. Resistance walks in and says, hey, shouldn't you really turn over that rhubarb bed before, So it's really hard for me to start to shift gears. Right now I'm doing this amazing sort of mix of painting and writing, and that feels really, really good, but I know it's not really me. I think it's just deadline produced. So yeah.
Yeah, just like the Kerouac story of him getting jazzed up to write and then sitting with a roll of telegraph paper, feeding into his typewriter. Truman Capote said later, that's not writing, that's typing.
Oh, yeah, sometimes it's just typing, you know, but usually I think the thing that's really cool about writing is that you don't know what you're going to write until you start doing it. And then all this stuff comes out. And I think that is the subconscious channeling through, because you're doing that repetitive motion of writing with a pen or typing. It frees up the subconscious to start really speaking to you. At least it does for me. And it's that quote, writing is like driving in the fog. You can only see as far as your headlights, but you can make the whole trip that way.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel that acutely too, because I participate in NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writers Month. You talk about deadlines, you get your 30 days to write 50,000 words. And there are two approaches to it. Some people will say, you know, you have to have an outline and write to it, otherwise you'll never make it. And then they're called planners. And then the other half is called pantsers. And they're just like, just go in and start writing. I find that I'm more of a plantser, a little bit of both. I have kind of a plan, but once I start writing, my characters and the plot have a mind of their own. And I might have ideas, but it's like, nope, this character's doing something else. I got to see where this character's going to take me. Got to go. So that happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all generated from you, but you don't really know that it's in there until you take
Right. Which leads me back to how you have to write those dreams out and actually go through the process of writing to see what's going to happen. And would you recommend that even for people who aren't writers, but for people who are like Elizabeth, who is a painter and a drawer, to say, can you get to drawing and painting through writing?
There's some things that I write certainly beg to be drawn, beg to be painted. I know, Elizabeth, what do you think?
I'm back to this, how I actually set and abide by my own deadlines. I'm very good when it comes to a client, but I'm trying to figure out how, Julie, you can set and abide by your own deadlines. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do, actually, and they're really practical thoughts. For me, deadlines have always been sacrosanct, because when I decided to go completely freelance, when I was, a long time ago, I decided that I would not have a boss anymore and I was going to be freelance. And there were a couple of things that floated up to the top. And one of them is, be absolutely sure before you say, yes, I can do that, that you can do it. But not only that, be sure that you can do it better than anybody else could. And that's why when you guys approached me about this video conference, I was like, well, I need some more information. You know, so I got really nerdy, and I started emailing you guys because I wanted to know what you expected. I wanted to know what you wanted and what would make you happy. So I wanted to make sure that I could give you that. That is what I mean by being an over-preparer. And I have only run into one freelance job that was a horrible fit for me. And because I didn't realize what the guy wanted until after we were well into it. And what he wanted me to do was to write a book with all his thoughts and information, but in my writing voice.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh, okay, so that's what you want. So I lost weeks of sleep over it because we had a contract and it was gonna happen. And I realized I could not bend and fold and mutilate myself into that box that he wanted to put me in. He wanted my poesy wrapped around what he wanted to say. And it was like, no. So I finally just said, I can't do this, you know. But that's the only time that I've ever gotten into a job that far and then said, whoa, 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 whoa. Usually I think it all out beforehand and make sure that I can do that.
Right.
So as a freelancer, that's one thing, is just make really sure that you can do it before you ever say yes. And then just really super simple stuff. Make your workspace really nice. You know, you can't work in clutter and junk. And if it's a scented candle that you need or just the right music on Spotify, make it a treat to go into your studio, you know. make it, keep it nice as much as you can. I mean, you know, when I'm working as I am now, there's just stuff strewn everywhere. It's like, hello, a blue jay skin. So, that kind of thing. So that's, no, my blue jay will take your little cardinal. So anyway, yeah, try to make your studio space really nice. Make it a place you feel like going. When you walk in, you heave a happy sigh. I got rid of all television when my last kid went to college this fall. I was like, you know what? Never gonna watch it, never gonna turn it on. If I need to watch TV, I'll go to the neighbor's house or something. So that's gone. And so this has been, for me, a process of Thorovian strip down, and it's really working well for me. Like, I just went downstairs, and I had meant to hang out clothes today, but it's not going to get above freezing again. So I unfurled my Amish drying rack in the basement. And as I was hanging the clothes on it in the dark, I thought, you are turning into Henry David Thoreau. But what I'm trying to do is not use stuff that I don't really need to use.
Yeah.
Why use electricity to dry your clothes? I've got time. Let's hang them up, you know?
For sure.
So, and why, right, if you can see with the light coming in the window, why turn on a light? That kind of thing.
I know our time is running out, and you know, you are a prolific writer, and we've got a lot of books. You have a new book coming out in fall of next year. Is that right? Tell us about that.
Correct. Yeah, it's called Saving Jemima, Life and Love with a Hard Luck Jay. And I mentioned earlier that I'd raised this bird, but all this other stuff happened, and it wasn't your normal raise and release story. There was television involved, and there was disease and catastrophe and love and laughter. And it's just a really kind of a neat story that has a real arc. And the coolest thing that happened is all of this heavy duty involvement with this one bird has launched me onto my career as a professional jay identifier. And now, yesterday morning, I could identify by their faces 8 of the jays at my feeder, just by looking at them.
By faces.
And this morning, yeah, by their faces. And I'm 7 and counting now. And the stuff that you learn when you know one bird from another is incredible, just incredible. It's the same thing that Jane Goodall did. The first thing she had to do was feed the chimpanzees, get them coming in, and then figure out who each one was and who was related to who. Now, I'm never going to go there with the jays, probably. I mean, I might get there. I'm looking at a jay right now. But it's like Jemima kicked open this door for me, and all this light came in. And it's just been amazing.
Now, we're looking forward to that book in fall of 2019. And I know that you talked a lot about creative solitude, and yet you're still a social person. Where can we find and follow you on social media? Okay.
I'm on Instagram under my own name, Julie Zickefoose. And I'm on Facebook under my own name, Julie Zickefoose. But I have only 100 more friends, so I'm getting really fussy about who I friend. You know, they cut you off at 5,000, man. You can't do it. So I've either got to clean the closet or I've got to stop friending people.
I will put a link to Julie's blog in the comments below as well as Instagram and Facebook. But don't expect to get friended by her on Facebook. But she's Julie, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
So
Thanks for
much.
having me. Thank you very much. I'm going to watch Jays now. Jays, it's just, you guys are just there.